Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio. Quick disclaimer before we get started today. Today's episode is purely for information and educational purposes only. It is not intended to treat or diagnose any form of medical condition. Please do consult with a healthcare practitioner if this is the case. Now, I want to bring your attention to two of the services that we offer here at Better Body Collective. The first being our one-to-one coaching service. We provide in-person and online versions of this, in person to those based in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and online for everywhere else in the world, and of course here for the UAE as well. If you're someone who is looking for personalized, purely individualized one-to-one coaching for improving your body composition with a very much health first and evidence-based approach, then look no further. That's exactly what we offer. You can go ahead and click the link in our bio and apply for coaching button in order to get started with your coaching application. From there, we'll then move to an initial meeting in person or over Zoom, and we'll discuss your goals. We'll discuss what the journey is going to involve and what you can expect from your journey as it unfolds. The second service I'd like to bring your attention to is, in fact, our educational offering, the first educational offering from our company at the moment. It is the Muscle Mechanics Mentorship. This is purely targeted at coaches based here in the UAE. It's an 8-week blended learning course where we have 8 weeks of online learning to go through, as well as 2 practical weekends, one at the halfway mark at the end of week 4 and one at the end of week 8. For me, I wish this was a course that I had when I started out as a coach. There is nothing more important than what we do as in-person coaches than exercise mechanics and understanding the implications of the forces that we're putting through our clients' bodies. And not only that, but how we can modify exercise to suit the individual and how we can get the absolute best possible body composition results from them as a byproduct of knowing this information and how to apply it. So if you're a coach and you're based here in the UAE and you're interested in knowing more about how you can level up your coaching, your results, and your income, really, then please do click the link in the bio and tap the black button that says Muscle Mechanics Intake. So to no further ado, let's move into the episode. All right, so we are diving into episode number 2 of the day, aren't we, Charlie?
Yep, I'm ready to ramble.
Second recording of the day. So the last one we did was a bit more of something I decided on in advance, but for this one, I thought Charlie brought up a great point. When he brought it up, I was like, you know what? I see that all the time as well. And so if he's seen it, I'm seeing it, chances are a lot of other PTs are seeing it in the gyms that they work in as well. If you're a member of the general population listening to this might be speaking directly at you, or it might be something you also notice as well. But let's see. It's more just this is going to be a very good awareness piece, I think, for a lot of people and worth listening to. So Charlie, tell us a bit about what's on your mind.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more esoteric, and the first thing I want to kind of blanket statement is this shouldn't be seen as like an attack on anyone in the gym. Hopefully it's somewhat helpful. Yep. But I see it all the time. If people kind of just going into the gym, doing their usual thing week in, week out, and just kind of almost hoping for results to happen and almost scared to make any changes for fear of losing what they already have, which is a very strange paradigm to have in training, but it's almost certainly what I feel like a lot of people are struggling with. Like they don't want to change their training modality. They want their 4 sets of 10 to 12 on everything because that's the way it is. Even if that's doing nothing for them, they'd rather have that security of, well, this is the way it is, than change anything and potentially make more progress. I feel like in their head, it's the fear of losing what little thing they already have. So it's a strange thing where essentially what I think this conversation will be doing is encouraging people to be a little bit more introspective with their training and just not being afraid to try new things. Even if you change your training up for a month, like what's the worst that can happen really? Because of what we know about the training stimulus, how it's going to affect the body, how, as long as you're recovering from it appropriately and applying a reasonable stimulus, you're going to get something out of your training, whether that's really high volume or low volume or intensity versus low intensity or whatever. Something will work, and typically it's going to be better than what most people are doing in the gym, which is kind of spinning their wheels and not really going places. At the end of the day, what we're training for, if it's to not make some gains.
Definitely. There's so many layers that we could go into with this and many paths to go down, but I think just an analogy I almost like to use with this as well is that we're obviously talking about it in a gym context, but people have many weird and wonderful and very deep-rooted reasons as to why they keep a familiar pattern. There's the fear of the unknown. There's the fear of getting things wrong. There's the fear of being judged. There's the fear of, well, what if I'm not good enough? What if I don't have the ability to do this now? And there's a laundry list of all the fears as to why you should do something. Another part of it as well, and this is getting a bit philosophical, a bit deep now, but people who continuously end up in abusive relationships, for example, or in relationships where like, I always end up with this type of guy or gal. And it's almost kind of like, well, and so their solution might be, right, well, I'm going to go and get in shape. They go and get in shape, and so all they end up doing is they attract the exact same type of person, but they might just be a little bit fitter or a little bit more in shape or less overweight. It's the same type of person, just the aesthetic has changed on the outside, but the deep-rooted stuff hasn't. And it kind of gets you to think a little bit like, well, what's actually going on there? And it's like, well, there's a certain, what's really tough about this, and again, this bit beyond our scope at times, and this can go way back to childhood. It can be like, there's what's known as ACEs, so like adverse childhood events. There can be something that happened in their upbringing where they were hurt in some way, either physically or emotionally or both, and they had a protective mechanism, and so that then becomes their default strategy for dealing with the situation. And so I'm bringing it back to the point, believe it or not. So the thing is that they'll do is they might find themselves back in these potentially relationships, abusive relationships, because it's all they know. It's the one thing that they have almost a deep-rooted comfort in. It's like, well, I don't know anything different. And if what happens if I put myself out there and try something that's different from what I already know? And it's that fear of not knowing what the other outcome is going to be and getting hurt and being vulnerable and all of those things. And so I think there's a lot of tie-in from that into this kind of thing as well. I mean, that's just one context and one part of life, but it's kind of the same thing about trying a nutrition approach, trying a training approach. It's just that, well, it's the fear of the unknown, and there's obviously something that they're getting from keeping doing the same things over and over. There's a certain comfort or a certain thing they're getting from that. And so it's almost getting to a point, well, how can we convince you that the comfort that you've got right now is a false comfort? And actually, by being willing to go through a hell of a lot of discomfort, we actually come out the other side in a place where we're in a much better spot than where you are now. I think that's the really hard part to kind of get through.
That is a really good way of looking at it. I hadn't really put it in that kind of context, but that is exactly it. It's almost like this fear of losing what you already have. But the funny thing in terms of the training side of things is, you're not, by doing something different, you're not going to be in any worse position you are right now, at least. Like if you're already spinning your wheels, it's not like you change your training and you regress, like unless you really do something horrifically wrong. But almost anything will be better than what you're doing if you're not making progress. But it is that funny fear of losing, not making progress, in this fear of like some kind of weird regression scheme that you're going to drop into. When you're right, it's also uncomfortable to change your trainings, especially if you have a little gym clique or something, or you've got your kind of friendship group around training, they have their take, and they'll be just as deep rooted in their beliefs and views as you, I imagine, and that's always challenging as well, to be like, let's do something different. So yeah, it's an uncomfortable place to be, but we hopefully, again, and this rings back to a lot of the nutrition stuff that we talk about. It's an education process. It's learning about, why is this the way it is, and trying to apply that into training as well.
I think to be very real for a moment as well, one of the things I think we often get frustrated at as coaches, let's be honest, and this doesn't come from a we're up here and we're down here type thing, definitely not that one. I think that maybe sometimes is how people would probably in their head think that we're looking at them in that way, because let's be honest, and especially in the gym we're in, we're delivering a service to a certain standard, we train to a certain standard, it's clear that we kind of know what we're doing. And it can be very frustrating for us to look around at people doing the same things and, let's be honest, just very suboptimally or just not even very well at all. But the problem is, because they've got good at being suboptimal, they're like, but I'm good at this, so I don't want to do something different, because then that means I'm a beginner again. It means that I'm actually not very good at this. And let's be honest, people don't like doing things that they either are not very good at yet or that feel really, really uncomfortable. And so I guess it's just putting that trust in. Actually, sometimes you've got to take a step in a new direction, and you've got to trust that discomfort a little bit to find a new way of doing things. So I think that's probably quite important to touch on as well. But there's, I suppose, there's a lot of layers to this, right? Like, I guess
there's so many layers.
I think with what we see as coaches in the gym, like we look around and one thing, there's a couple of main things that I suppose that stick out for us, and you probably agree with this. One is not actually having a training plan, not having a plan or a structure. Yeah. So that's one. It's just going in literally and just going, right, well, and don't get me wrong, people sometimes go in and they repeat the same stuff over and over and over and over. And that's not exactly what we're criticizing, because let's be honest, if we were getting people to go through a periodized phase of training, we'd be getting them to do a lot of repetitive stuff over and over and over. But the only difference with that is that we're logbooking that and we're ensuring that there's some form of progression, whether we're running like a double progression model or whether we're running some form of other progressive model. We're always ensuring that, right, well, actually this week's not a week to progress. We need to take a step back because you've not had enough sleep or this and that's been off. That's one of the advantages of hiring a coach, wink, wink, nudge. And so, yeah, they're not actually having a plan. The difference is we're not saying that it's not okay to repeat things, but you also have to know, if you don't track data and you're not tracking this stuff, how do you know when you've reached the ceiling with that and it's time to change that to something different? I think a lot of people often think, well, that they get criticized for that, and we're not saying that you have to change your program in 4 weeks and shock the body, as they often used to say. It's definitely not that at all, but at least having some form of structure and you have data to suggest this is working and this is not. So that's probably one for me. What's another one that you see?
To piggyback off that, and then I'll add to that, is to give everyone like a conceptual, like something you'll definitely, now I'd probably point this out, you'll probably see this every time you go in the gym. It's the guy who goes to the bench press, puts 20 kilo on each side and does his reps. And then the next week he comes in, puts 20 kilos on each side and does the reps. And it's like that for 3 months. And then he'll complain about, I'm making no progress on my bench. And it's like, you just, and that frustration, again, is also piggybacking off the first thing you said, where it sounds like we're coming from a place of attack. It's actually that it sounds a bit like high and mighty, but I care so much. Like I want people to be jacked and tan. Like why can't you just grasp this? Like it's not from it might sound like it, but for me it's coming from a place of passion, and like it's because I want everyone to make progress. I want everyone to enjoy their time in the gym, and like it feels so good when you hit a PR and like you look back at your maybe like two mesocycles ago and you're like, whoa, I'm like 30 kilos up on this certain lift, and like that's the fun of it. And so it's partly, like you said, the biggest thing is just having some kind of idea of what you're doing will help eliminate a lot of these problems anyway. I think that's one thing. And then the other thing I'll add to that is having a clear goal. And I'll use one of the newer clients for the Better Body Collective as an example, but someone who definitely trained his ass off. Like he's kind of coming from a bit of a CrossFit expenditure background, but kind of just training. Yeah. And whereas once you kind of solidify a path that you want to go down and start tailoring your approach to actually meet that goal, things escalate a lot quicker than, and I've been guilty of this in the past where I've designed my own, when I've used to design my own training plans of like, well, I want to get stronger at this, or do a strength thing. I want to get a bit bigger as well, so I do like a hypertrophy thing, but I need to be conditioned, CV. So I end up having these 2.5 hour training sessions that just do everything kind of mediocrely, instead of just being like, right, I just want to do this. Let's do it really well, and then we can assess in the future.
Yeah, definitely a good point. Just trying to train for everything and not training for anything in particular, and not really progressing in any of those things particularly well. And I think the thing is like, obviously, first thing people are going to say, but look at the CrossFitters. They're jacked and they're strong and they're fit. So listen, that's athletes who can contribute excellent. And trust me, I can speak from experience because I went and did the whole regionals thing. I did the whole 4 hours a day, 5-6 days a week. You could devote so much of your time and effort to being good at all of those things. The average person wanting to go to the gym, they might turn up to like a CrossFit gym, a CrossFit box, do 5 1-hour classes a week if you're lucky. Some do 3 or 4. They're trying to cover so many things at once that they just end up not really progressing in any of those things. And they're like, why am I not getting any progress? I want, and especially for the ladies, like, I want bigger glutes. I want this, I want that. It's like, well, you're not doing anything that actually progressively and predictably stimulates the glutes and continues to stimulate them for a long period of time. So how can you tell me that when you're doing a different thing every single session that you're going to expect a tangible and measurable progress over time? Like, it's just not possible because it's too random. Now, I've got nothing wrong. Like I said, against CrossFit, I did it for a long time. I did it competitively. And if that's your goal or you enjoy that as an activity, fine. But when the goal is very specific, you have to make sure that the training meets that demand. Now, if your goal is to get really damn good at, running marathons or to be able to do like adventure race runs and compete in those, then again, your training should be geared towards that in some way. And it doesn't mean that you won't benefit from other qualities of fitness to contribute to that, but you just have to understand, like, what's the why, what's the plan, why am I doing this, and is it a good allocation of time, effort, resources? The big thing. So yeah, we see a lot of it. We've actually had, funny you mentioned your new client, and we know exactly who you're talking about. And man, I over the last like 4 or 5 years, I've had the same. Like, so many people who have just got so disenchanted because they actually went into CrossFit from a body composition point of view. Because let's be honest, some of the top athletes have great physiques. They do.
Cracking rigs.
Especially females. Some of the females are just insane rigs. But you got to remember where they are. And also there's a question then, once they get past a certain level of competitiveness, are they natural and all that sort of stuff? Yeah. So there's a whole different conversation to go down there. But I think it's always got to be an individual approach. And one thing that you're never going to get from going to group classes or going to that sort of environment is not going to be specific to you as an individual, to your biomechanics, to how your physiology responds. So you've got to adapt to that accordingly, for sure.
Yeah.
I think another thing as well, Charlie, to add on top of what you're saying about that guy coming in and doing the same thing, like the bench press 60 kilos, and just like, why am my chest not getting bigger? Well, there's no progressive growth. But the other part of that as well is that a lot of people don't actually understand how to train very well. And I've said this very openly before, like I would say that the majority of personal trainers don't actually, and this is not to sound high and mighty, it's not a dig, it's just, I get so frustrated seeing personal trainers training themselves and not training very well with good mechanics, and wondering why, whether it be a trainer or a member who goes to the gym 5 days a week, and they're so like, they're really passionate about it, but like, my chest is not growing, my delts are not growing, my back's not growing. Why is that? And then you look at the mechanics, like, well, you don't train in a way that is conducive to you actually stimulating those tissues, because you don't understand that a wide grip pull down is not that movement, for example, or it's not very good at that. You don't understand that when you roll like this, through tons of inertia and your elbows are flaring out to the side, that's not a very good lat movement, so you can't expect your lats to grow. It's going to be it's why you've got massive rear delts, but you're not getting any lats, because you're actually pulling in a way that's weird. So it's all of these things. I think if people were willing to just either educate themselves, or again, nudge, wink, wink, hire a coach who really understands how to train with good mechanics, etc., and teach you how to train for your structure as an individual, and not what's just worked for them, which is really important as well. A lot of coaches just say, well, this works for me, so you do this. That doesn't matter. That client has their own structure, their own joint physiology, and everything that goes with that. So it has to be specific for them. So I think people go in and do the same stuff over and over and wonder why they're not getting anywhere. Well, that's part of it as well, is it's actually training for you as an individual.
That is perfect segue into basically the point I was going to make as well. It's like, like exercise, and that is kind of goes hand in hand, like exercise, having good exercise selection. Like, it is somewhat disappointing when you kind of look at what's the kind of exercise we have on offer to train a certain body part is not the most sexy ones in the world. Yeah. But it's because they do the job they're supposed to do. And again, when you've been spinning your wheels for 6 months, the only thing that I suppose comes to mind after that time is, well, I'm gonna have to must be my exercises. And so you go down either it's the Instagram or whatever rabbit hole of these mad exercises that people are doing because they look pretty good, but in actual fact they're doing a worse job than what you were doing before if you just executed the stuff you're doing before correctly. And so that's a whole other bridge that people need to cross as well. Is like, maybe that bench press has been really good for your chest development. You've not been executing it well or not progressing it at all. And so now you're doing some, an underhand grip press because someone's told you that's really good for the upper chest for whatever reason. It's like
squeeze press.
Yeah, squeeze press or whatever. And again, these things, feel really good. Like when you do a squeeze, like a 2 dumbbells together squeeze press, that you do get this sensation on the chest, and so you're like, okay, this is what it's all about then. But then if you just, after a few weeks of spinning the wheel on that, you're going to end up in the same place as before. So one of the biggest things I can recommend to anyone is just learning how to execute really, really well. And it's actually the same client I was talking about before had that reaction when he sort of got his training plan through in his intro video, and was like, he didn't mind saying this to me in the last session we had, but it's actually a compliment. But he's like, have I just paid for this? Like, Jesus Christ. But when you get in and you execute and you drill down on technique and you apply the tension where it's supposed to be, it's like, this is the hardest training I've ever done in my life. Like the building blocks of it are extremely basic, but it's that execution and going in with some intent. That's what starts your progression and starts getting you fired up.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because I know exactly again who you're talking about, and I know the program you put together was like a GBC, modified GBC, and I think on paper a lot of people like, and it's amazing how we look at that on paper and we think, oh no, that is brutal.
Yeah.
Because we know that with the right execution and the right rest periods and stuff, we're just like, that is going to bury me if I do that. Yep. Because we know how to empty the tank on every exercise if we need to. But for the gym pop, so I'm just doing like a split squat into a, and we usually would do like upper, like say for example it was GBC. For anyone who doesn't know, that's German body comp, and you would usually do like an upper push into a lower pull and vice versa, whatever else. There are times you can do kind of upper push and lower push and things like that, but that's a whole different thing. But yeah, people literally do that and they're just like, I cannot believe how hard this is. And it's like, it doesn't have to be complex. And I always like this, what was this phrase before? It doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to suck.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It just has to be very effective. It just has to be effective. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah,
I would say people.
It's almost like that weird thing where if you get to the point where you're looking forward to your workout, it's probably a bit easy. There should be an element of your workout where you're like, I want to do it, but I also don't want to do it at all.
Yeah, if there's not some healthy element of fear at some point in a session, then you're not doing it right. Especially right.
But I think I think that's a good point to touch on as well. We've covered execution. One, you like fill us in about intensity and making that execution count.
Yeah, well, I guess are we talking about intensity as an actual intensity, or?
Yeah, like again, the thing you'll see people do is, well, I'm doing my 4 sets of 10, and that that 10th rep, they're not even, they're an RPE like of 0, like they could do 10 more, but because the Flex magazine says 10 reps, you just stop at 10 and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is that, and I love programming. It's an area that I'm really passionate about and I enjoy doing. But I think the thing I always say to my clients, listen, this is a framework. That's pretty much what this is. Just because I've written down that this is the rep range, if on that given day and I've seen this with clients, like they just turn out and they've just, whether it's a neurological adaptation or whether they just feel more confident that day, they've had more sleep, whatever it is, and they're just ready to go way past what they did before. Well, guess what? You're freaking keep going and going and going, because you get more to give, you get more to give. Now, there's certainly, and this is a whole different discussion, and Charlie and I can have a different, actually a very balanced discussion on this, because he trains in a way which is very mesocycle focused, reps in reserve. I don't train in that way. I very much train everything's to failure. And there's pros and cons to both of those methods, and neither of us in the team would say that all clients have to train one way or the other. It's going to be either phase dependent, goal dependent, individual dependent. Some clients just, first of all, you would never set even a rep in reserve or say to failure, because they're just never going to achieve either particularly well. It's just a case of, right, we'll get this work to do and we're going to try and get an effective stimulus out of you, and that's pretty much it. You actually don't even have the right to even talk about either of those two things at this point in time yet. It's just getting an effective workout. So without putting that conversation to the side, essentially it's exactly that. Like, a lot of people think on paper, well, this looks really easy. I'm used to doing 4 or 5 sets. And I love it. And I mean, you probably know as well, Charlie, I'm training quite a few pretty decent individuals at the moment, either just normal trainings or trainers. And it's amazing when you take them through, right, we're only doing 2 sets here. What do you mean only 2 sets? Like, we're going to do a couple of feeders and then we're going to do 2 sets. That's it. And like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm absolutely sure. Put them on the hack squat, reverse band, and they do their top set and they're just like, I don't know if I can do another one. It's just like, this is what I mean. It's because you now understand what it is to actually take yourself to a degree where there's a high number of stimulatory reps that's in a either to failure, mechanical failure, technical failure, or it's in a very close proximity.
Very close.
And that's where the money is. But like you say, most people go in and they might do those 4 sets of 10, 15. The first 2 sets are really warm-up sets, if we're being honest. Like, they've not really stimulated anything in particular. And that's assuming that technique is somewhat okay. That's not always the case sometimes. So you combine non-stimulatory reps that are not very effective from an execution standpoint or from an actual stimulus standpoint. And by the time they get to the last set, probably the 4th set is the only one that's actually even getting close to creating stimulus. So I guess the point is more is not always more. And I use this term all the time. I said this to a client the other day. I was like, more isn't better, better is better. Pure and simple. So we want better, not more. And if sometimes you might get to a point where those 2 or 3 sets isn't enough, and that's fine. You've reached a point of adaptation, and we might have to tweak or do something else. But yeah, it's exactly that. There's so many guys who go in and I see it. It's the typical bro, old school bodybuilding. Well, I've just done 50 odd sets of my chest. And whenever I hear anyone say that nowadays, I'm just like, well, if you're doing that many sets in a session for one body part, you do not know how to train that body part effectively. There's a lot of, like, we talk about it in endurance sports, that people run junk miles. I would say it's junk volume. People do so much junk volume. And one thing that we can do from a coaching perspective to minimize injury risk, wear and tear, actually creating a lot of metabolic byproducts, waste byproducts that we actually are not very favorable to create those or to overdo those, like muscular damage, too much metabolite accumulation. If we can just, right, we're going to achieve a really effective stimulus without all of those byproducts, without all of that damage, without all of that joint wear and tear, or if we can really heavily limit that while getting effective stimulus, then not only are we going to get an effective response for less work, we're now going to be able to recover better, and we're actually going to be able to be in this game for a much longer period of time and get more from it. So yeah, that's a huge point, is just knowing actually what intensity is. The reality is most people don't. They don't know what it is to actually train to a good degree of intensity. So learning how to do the basics really, really well with minimum effective volume, minimum dose, but doing it incredibly well to a high degree of effort. That's the marriage. I always like to use the phrase, and it's one of my kind of taglines I use when it comes to talking about execution, is we want to achieve the perfect marriage between intensity and laser-like execution. You can get those 2 things. That's where the money is.
Yeah, it's even the people who don't even do the whole feeder sets thing. Like, you know, I've seen people and seen kind of, I wouldn't even call them programs, but guidelines, I guess. It's 4 sets of not 10 to 15 or 10 to 12. It's 4 sets of 10. You stop at 10. No matter what, and potentially people won't even increment the weight on that. They'll just do the same weight 4 times 10 times, which is, yeah, like what you've been going on about there is exactly right. It's not going to be anywhere, even if you nail the technique on it, is not going to be anywhere close to actually delivering a stimulus to the muscle that's going to make you progress. And I urge, the biggest thing for me was getting some level of knowledge behind kind of biomechanics, execution, this kind of thing, where suddenly you go from these kind of 25, 30 set workouts down to like workouts that are 10 sets or less. Because yeah, if you get off that 3rd set of an exercise and want to do a 4th, you didn't train hard enough. You could even say that for the 2nd set or even the 1st when you get really good at doing it. But for most people in the gym, if you get out of the machine or put the dumbbells down on that 3rd set and you want to go and do another one, you had plenty more to give. Let me put it that way.
Sure. I think that's why I'm such a big fan from a program point of view. What I'm seeing a lot in client programs at the moment, again, it's very dependent on what they're doing, but I often like to program is, I don't think we should be going in with Gym Pop and necessarily doing the good old, top set, back off set, because first of all, most Gym Pop clients are not going to get enough from 2 sets. Most of them are going to need at least 3. What I found really worked well, though, is a bit of a spin on that. I often will program, like you said, rep ranges where there's maybe a range of either 2 or most likely 4, like it might be 8 to 12, 12 to 15, 10 to 14. There's a couple of benefits that come from that. You have a larger rep range, you can auto-regulate depending on how the person is that week. The second part of that, though, is that it forces the client to get really good at nailing that weight and really getting them to work on, right? You're going to earn those reps. You've got to earn those reps. Once you get, and I think you talked about this, like almost treating every set as its own progression. Once you get to the top end of that set can progress. But if you don't progress the other one, that's going to stay where it is until you reach the top end of that set. And when you have that sort of double progression model in place, it's just a much smarter, very tangible way to continue progressing over time. And I think then with the double progression model, what I often will do is I'll have, if it's more of a loading type scenario where it's very mechanical tension based, if it's metabolic, there's many other ways to set up the sets to be like moderate, heavy, light, or to do like rest, pause, or drop sets. But if it's very mechanical tension based, I actually really big a fan of doing 2 heavier sets and 1 lighter set and getting them to, because for most Gen Pop clients as well, they are going to benefit from a bit more volume as well. So having that ability to, in that 3rd set, to write, well, we've ideally emptied the tank from a intensity standpoint in the first 2. This is your opportunity to really close it off. This is your chance to bury yourself in this set, both from a volume perspective, but also still that high degree of effort. It's just now you've got that pre-fatigue in place there as well. So I really like that sort of setup for a lot of people. Have you anything to add to that before I add to the final point?
Well, I was going to say the other good benefit of that, from a Gen Pop standpoint, but I think everyone can benefit from it, is, I don't know if you found this with your Gen Pop, but that first set, they do a good job on the first set, but it almost potentiates for that second set, like they're remembering the technique, everything's getting a bit switched on. So, for someone who's more advanced, you probably would never match reps to your first set, like if you're, when you're doing it to a really good standard. But most of our Gen Pops probably do. But I find that's typically, it's almost a potentiation thing. So having those 2 heavier sets is really beneficial from that standpoint. They can just drill down that technique's pretty good on the first, and then everything's switched on. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that cue you told me last week, or I remember this and that. And then the second set's also very, very high quality. And then the 3rd set drop off I like as well, because they can bury themselves, but it's not as intimidating. Like having that lighter load is like, okay, I can do this. And once you get up to that 17th, 18th rep, it's pretty miserable, but it's not as it's not as scary as having that, Jesus Christ, on the 6th rep, I might die, so there's a lot of hidden minute benefits in there. I think that's good.
Yeah, they tend to be able to keep it dialed in with that level of fatigue. And generally speaking, Gen Pop won't be as good at buffering fatigue. Anyway, but even if someone is, there's a limit to how much you're going to be able to keep it dialed in if you continue pushing that same intensity. For me, you're right, I can't do 2 sets matching output back to back. If I keep a reasonable rest period, there's no way I'm matching the first set. Absolutely no chance. So that's always the case. I think the other thing is, well, probably the last point, this may be a good one to close on, is program hopping. It's probably the one thing.
Great one.
Is just, I'm going to come in, I'm going to follow whoever this Insta person's thing is for 4 weeks, then I'm going to go to the next one. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of really good 8-week challenges out there, 12-week challenges, and I've got absolutely nothing against those. In fact, we're even discussing launching our own version of that, but with a twist. It's not just you do 8 weeks and then see you later. We're going to try and provide something that literally kind of feeds on from one another. So you can essentially go from challenge to challenge, and you're almost just in a group environment. You're doing long-term training, and one challenge set training would progress. The next challenge would come on. There would be a program that's progressed from the first one, so it's not just a random new program you're getting. So, there are challenges out there that exist that do that, which I think great. If that's something that motivates you in that sort of environment, and you don't have access to a trainer, or it's not feasible for you to hire one, then that's cool. So I think that's fine. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just hopping from one thing to the next, the next, the next. And it's just so random and different. Usually it's with the emphasis of, well, I don't want to have to think. I have an issue with that, number one. Don't get me wrong, I think it's good to hire a coach to outsource the setting things up, the program design, the holding you accountable. But one thing I'm a really big believer in is that people should be intellectually involved in the process they're going through, because it's an investment. It's an investment so that you can learn eventually how I do this on my own. So you don't need us anymore. If we've done a good job, people are staying with us because they like us as people, hopefully.
Yeah.
And because they understand that as we keep learning and adding to our knowledge base, that if they wanted to, there's going to be a perpetual ability to add more knowledge, skills, experience to their belt. But the reality is, we don't want someone to need us after like 6 months to a year. We want people to want to be with us after that period of time, but not need us. So that's really, really important. But the problem is, a lot of people go in and they just want to feel tired and sweaty, and they just want to feel all right. I want to feel absolutely, and I hear this all the time, I just sweated my buckets and I just felt ruined after that session. First of all, you shouldn't feel ruined after every single training session. If you're doing that, you're definitely doing it wrong, for sure, because recoverability is such a massive component of actually getting a stimulus. Remember, the whole goal of doing lifting in the gym or any form of activity is, I want to get a stimulus. all of the processes that happen after that, where we adapt, actually happen away from the training whilst we're recovering. So if you're constantly burying yourself and putting yourself in a non-recoverable hole that you can't get out of, that's not conducive to long-term progress. So that's probably just another thing I would say as well, is people hopping from program to program with no structure or thought process, and with the intention of just burning calories and getting sweaty and tired.
Yeah. And then the other thing that comes off the back of program hopping is just it's again unsexy, but it's what we preach, and it's just having patience. Like, you know, I'm 2 weeks in and I haven't seen anything yet. It's like I wouldn't expect you to. Like, I wouldn't expect even a rank beginner, if it was from a hypertrophy, a muscle building point of view, to see anything in 2 weeks. So, you know, when you get into that 2 week mark and you're worried that you haven't made progress, that's perfectly normal. It's you should stay with your program, because kind of like what we're talking about with logbooking and making sure you're progressing. Like, even a bad program that's tracked and progressed is going to be better than no program at all, or hopping programs, because you'll basically be, without program hopping, you'll always be in week 1 of the program. Always. If when you change program, you set it all up, even if you're logbooking, week 1, and then no, I don't like this, change week 1. At least go to week 8 on a bad program. You'll get something out of that. I promise you. It'll be better than doing week 1 of 8 different programs.
Couldn't agree more. There's a thing I always say to clients, which I think is a nice way to kind of, and I like why I use the analogy of 8 weeks, because for me, the first 4 weeks of any training program, even if you're experienced, like, you might be able to expedite that a little bit quicker, but the first 4 weeks is skill acquisition. You're essentially just getting good at performing the program. And realistically speaking, if you're really good, like if you're experienced, you can get kind of in the gym on the 2nd or 3rd week and start making moves. But that comes with, like, how long have you been training for? For me, I've been since I was 14, so that's been almost 20 years now. You're at a point where you've been lifting for 20 years, you can kind of turn it on a little bit. That's me showing my age now as well. What about you, Charlie?
Lifting for me has been about 11 or 12 years. But I mean, I've been training forever in some kind of sport.
There you go.
But yeah, lifting 11 or 12.
There you go. I got lifting early because of rugby, because otherwise you get back.
Yeah, of course.
All these grown men, which I didn't enjoy very much. So I thought if I get muscles, I'll be able to hold on a little bit more.
See, that's why I got into lifting.
That's why
I was with. Well, yeah, because I was basically in the university accommodation with a bunch of rugby guys, but I was like a scrawny swimming dude. So I was like, right, better get in the gym then.
Exactly, carry yourself around.
Exactly.
It's important. I felt like I had something to add in on top of that. No, that was it. So yeah, it's just the skill acquisition component, I think. For most of the top
and
clients,
after that skill acquisition phase, then you're making progress. So
imagine you cut your program at 6 weeks. You've had 2 weeks of making progress, and then you stopped.
Yeah.
Why would you stop something if it's doing bits for you, as they would say? So I've actually got a lot of clients. Like, I know that if I look at some of my female clients that I'm working with at the moment who are doing really, really well, and I look at, like, even say like Marina, Tatiana, Teresa, even Maha that I work with as well, most of them, their initial first program ran for, I think, 20 to 24 weeks. They were making progress. If it's working, why do I need to change it? And a lot of people often, you probably hear this as well, Charlie, a lot of trainers really worry about it, but a lot of my clients like, I'm bored and it's monotonous. I can almost guarantee that if it's that, it's probably because either they're not making progress, or you're not making the sessions challenging enough, so they don't feel like they're getting much from it. I've not had a complaint in the last 2 years about someone following the same program for 20, 24 weeks. Not once, because every time they do the training session, like, does this ever get any easier? I was like, well, no, but you just get stronger and you get better at it. That's it.
That it's the perfect circle back into intensity. Like, what if my client gets bored of that? It's because you're not pushing them hard enough. Like, if you actually make them work, they'll enjoy that repetition. They'll enjoy, we have all our clients will ask, what weight is it today, or what weight was it last week, or whatever, because again, that goes back to being intellectually involved with your training. If you're just being kind of spoon-fed, I suppose, by someone, it could be quite boring. But having a bit of an intellectual investment, what do I need to do this week? What did I do last week? And that's what makes it fun. That's what we enjoy for ourselves, hitting new PRs. That's what is fun for our clients and people who actually get into a program. You don't mind doing 24 weeks of a program, because you're like, well, I started off hack squatting 40 kilos. Now I can hack squat 120. This is awesome. Like, I don't want to please keep me on the hack squat. Like, keep it forever. The only thing that people don't say that about is split squats.
It couldn't be any more true.
They're like, when do we change split squats? And that's week 1.
Reject it week 4, please. It's like, no. That's gonna work. You're so right though. Like all of my clients, male or female, like chomping at the bit. Like, what have I got this week? What do I need to do? Like, they're just so pumped that I need to beat that, and that's when I know someone's now training and not exercising.
Hell yeah.
I think that's a great note to finish that on.
Think so.
So I'm going to give a bit of a shout out on this one. So Charlie, where can the guys find you on social if they want to connect?
Instagram's the best place, at Coach Charles Barclay, like the bank. No relation, unfortunately. But that's the best place to reach out. Like, tag me up or ask me questions, whatever. I'm always pretty active on there. And then I'll also, just thinking about it now, is if this has sparked an interest in you being introspective about your programming and perhaps about your execution, I would highly recommend you get involved in some kind of biomechanics education. And there's no better place than the Better Body Muscle Mechanics course. Like that, when I was lucky that I worked at a place that was very big on educating their trainers about biomechanics, and it changed the way I trained and the way I made progress ever since. I cannot push it enough. And it is one of those things that you really need to do it practically to get the most out of it, because it is so feely. So if this has sparked that like thought of like, maybe I need to look at my training here, I highly recommend doing it, because it will change your training forever for the rest of your life.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, Sharon. I mean, and ultimately Charlie and even Max, obviously, who's not with us anymore, he's going to come back to help us out with the delivery of that course as well, the first one especially. But yeah, I mean, I'll be transparent. Like, it's been quite tough to get it going. Like, and part of that's we've not pushed it massively. I've done some initial stuff. We've got a few people signed up. But I think what I'm seeing is that a lot of coaches have reached out and they're interested in it, but either they invested in a whole bunch of stuff over COVID, so they're kind of like, well, I just need to finish off what I'm doing, I'll come on the next one. And I think part of that is that people are like, well, and it's we've talked about this before with our clients, like they don't know how different it is how we train people until we get them in front of us. And I think part of that is also the same with the coaches. Like they probably get the idea that, yeah, probably being able to train their clients with better technique is good. But I think until they experience it themselves, it's going to be so hard to get that. So part of actually what I'm considering, to be honest, I'm actually considering splitting the theory and the practical into 2 separate things altogether, and rather giving people the opportunity to do just the practicals, do just the theory, or do both. Because I think the demand has kind of been there, both internationally and locally. But I think to push the guys locally to really understand why we preach so much about exercise mechanics and how good it is, I think we just have to get our hands on you guys and show you.
That's what makes the difference, man. Once you've felt your lats for the first time in your life, you're like, oh my god, that's what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I love more, whether working with coaches or clients or both. It's just that aha moment when they're just like, right, I get it, and I'm like, oh, and that's just the start. Wait till you actually start doing that, but progressing over time, and then. They've made more progress in that body part in 6 months than they have in 6 years. And it's like, that's the magic. So yeah, definitely. Yep. For me, guys, you can find me at Coach Ross Gilmore, not like happy though, although I am happy most of the time. It's MOUR for the Gilmore. And of course, you can find us as a team at Better Body Collective. And this podcast is actually going to be coming out at a good time, because we just received our full graphics pack from GraphFit. So we're now going to be starting to push a bit more back, because on all of our own pages, we've all been very active. We've been putting a lot of content out there. But as a company, I'll be honest, we've been a bit AWOL. Other than posting the podcast episodes when they come out, we've not really been speaking too much on our social, the Better Body page. And that's going to change in the coming weeks, because we're now going to be getting a lot more out there from a content perspective. So looking forward to doing that as well. We've all been working busy behind the scenes with clients, getting good results as well. So more of those to come as well. So yeah, that's where you can find us, guys. Again, like I said, all the podcasts, if you're listening to us on something like Spotify, Stitcher, something like that, take a screenshot on your phone, tag us at Better Body Collective, and of course, hashtag Better Body Radio in your stories. And if you're watching Apple Podcasts, leaving that review, that 5-star review, is worth its weight in gold for us to get in front of more people. Other than that, Charlie, anything else you want to
I'm good. I think that was a good discussion.
Yeah, enjoyed that one. So we'll have Charlie back in, not next week, because it'll be Mrs. Better Body coming in to share her 2 cents next week. And the week after, we'll have you back on. But Charlie, thanks again.